What's going on YouTube? This is IPSec. I'm doing Escape from HackTheBox, which is a short but sweet Windows box. It starts off with an open SMB share that has a PDF file in it. You open the PDF, you discover credentials that you let you into the MSSQL server, and you don't have any write access, but you can read files. So that means you can combine that with like Responder and then steal that net NTLM v2 hash of the MSSQL user, crack it, and then you have WinRM credentials into the box, but you could also just Silver Ticket the MSSQL server and read files as administrator. But if you log into the box, you discover you have access to authentication logs, and one of the users typed his password as a username once, so you can get a different set of credentials. And then there's a vulnerable certificate template on this box, just one of the ESC type of attacks, and the Spectre Ops certified pre-owned talk. So you can just use Certify or Certipy to exploit that certificate template and get administrator that way. With that being said, let's jump in. As always, we start off with the nmap, so -sc for default scripts, sv, enumerate versions, oa, output all formats, put in the nmap directory and call it escape, and then the IP address of 10.10.11.202. This can take some time to run, so I've already ran it. Looking at the results, we have just 12 ports open, the first one being DNS on port 53. Its banner tells us it's simple DNS+. And then the very next one, we have Kerberos on port 88 telling us Microsoft Windows Kerberos, so we know this is probably going to be a Windows Active Directory server, as LDAP does tell us on port 389. It's also leaking the domain name, which is sql.htb, so let's go and add that to a host file, so sudo vi etc host, put in our password, and then we can go 10.10.11.202 sql.htb. And also, we have the alternative name on this SSL. We have dc.sql.htb, so we can add that too. So dc.sql.htb. Close that out and see what else there is. So we have more LDAP saying pretty much the same thing. We also have 1433, which is going to be Microsoft SQL. And now I'm seeing what these people did. I normally call it SQL, but they named the box SQL. So now I have to call this SQL instead of SQL. Darn them. We also see some nmap scripts failing. That's not too interesting. The common name SSL self-signed fallback. I don't know where that one came from. That is somewhat interesting to me. We also have the date is 8 hours off. So if we ever do anything Kerberos related, we should run an NTP date. And then just more LDAP stuff, and that will conclude nmap. So there's really two things I can really do from here. I can't really do web enumeration because we don't see port 80 or 443 or any web server for that matter. This is Active Directory, so we could start poking at SMB, but before I do, I just want to show one small thing because it's going to come in handy later, right? So if we look at the port, let's just grab 3269, a high number port. And that even though it says LDAP, we can still complete the SSL handshake in a browser. So HTTPS, put 10.10.11.202, that port. And I thought we could 3269. Let's try 3268. Secure connection failed. Let's see, 3269. Okay, that one succeeded. I don't know why it took a long time. But we can view the certificate, and we see the common name is sql-dc.ca. When you see this, this is probably the domain name, domain controller, certificate authority. And just the box being named escape ESC, I think of all the Spectre Ops post about certificate authority privilege escalations, right? The certified pre-owned talks. So that's where I go. I see there is a certificate authority on the box based upon the common name here. If you didn't want to use Firefox, you could also connect to it through OpenSSL. So like OpenSSL, S-Client, we'd need show certs, then connect 10.10.11.202. Then what was the port? It's 3269. Let's see. We also need to view the X509 cert. So pipe that over to OpenSSL, X509, no out, and text. So here we have, let's see. Let's pipe dev null into this. and pipe dev null out. That did not do what I expected. What if I just less this? It'll look better. Yeah, so we have information here. So we have like the full name, the CA issuer. We can see the common name SQL DCCA. So we can see the certificate through this OpenSSL command. Not sure if I did it correctly, but it works well enough to get there, right? So the other thing we wanted to look at is SMB. So we can do CrackMapExec, SMB 10.10.11.202. And I just want to make sure we can connect to it. We can. We see the DC's name and the domain name, but that's no new information to us. I'm going to do -- shares, and it's going to tell us status user session deleted. If we give it a username, it doesn't have to be anything that exists. CrackMapExec is going to do authentication slightly differently, and this time it actually works. So we can specify -u, not -username, not --u. I'll get there, I promise. There we go. I don't know if I need the -p flag, so that's why I'm testing. You need both -u and -p. And we see now, I think it does like guest authentication or something like that. And we can see there is a public SMB directory. If you didn't want to use CrackMapExec, you could also use SMB client. So SMB client -L 10.10.11.202. And then just hit enter and ask you the password. You can see the same thing. The only thing you can't see is your permissions on each share. So let's go into the public share because that's a non-default share and says public. So chances are anyone can authenticate to it. So let's do a dir. We can see there is a SQL server procedures. So I'm going to get this file. And since it has spaces in the name, I'm making sure I put it in double quotes. So we can download this, exit, and then we can open the PDF. And looking at it, we have SQL Server Procedures. And then since last year, we got a few incidents. I'm just skimming over this. We have a potential name, Ryan and Tom. I'm guessing Ryan's not an admin. The Tom is the admin based upon this. You can definitely do administrative things. This is going to remove instances, right? It's talking about how to access the SQL server from a domain joined machine, non-domain joined machine, and then as a bonus for new hires, they're giving some credentials. We have public user and guest can't write one. So the very first thing I'm going to do is test these credentials out. So let's just do -u, public user, and we'll copy this password of guest user can't write one and see if this gets us anything. So we attempt to authenticate. We do have a success, but it doesn't buy us anything. We could also do -- shares to see if there's anything new with this user, but I don't believe there is. Oh, we can't even read the shares. Is it going to say everything is authenticated? Let's just do guest use, public use. Okay, so authentication is just wonky in this. That's definitely not a user. Like if I put IPsec here, it's going to give me the plus as well. I forget exactly what causes CrackMapExec to do this. We can try WinRM to see if we can log into it. And I think we can't. It's taking its time, but there we go. This time we actually have the minus, so we can't authenticate at all. I'm guessing what does this is whatever behavior let us read the shares as a fake user, right? So the other thing we could try, since MSSQL is open and we had credentials, we can try doing the CME one, and we get login failed for the user. But there are two types of authentications for Microsoft SQL. There is the -- local auth. So let's try that. So if I do -- local auth, I need to get rid of that -h. And that will log in. So we have public user. It looks like it can get in. I'm just going to get rid of something. I want to make sure. So if we had an invalid username, it's not the same bug we saw before. So I'm going to do --L, which lists modules that are available to me. And let's try the mssql_priv module to see what privileges we have on this. And it looks like the module fails because we don't get any more information, right? So the next thing to do is let's try CrackMapExec. So mssql client. And then we can do, what is it? Public user : guest user can't write one at SQL.htb. Is that how we authenticate? It is. And we get logged in. So we can do help for extra commands. And we can try to do something like, let's see, xp cmd shell, who am I? Execute permission denied. We can try to enable it. So enable xp cmd shell. We don't have privileges to do this. So we can probably try the xp dir tree and see if we can get any credentials out of this. So I'm going to do xp_dir tree and then my IP address of 10.10.14.8. I'm going to put a fake share. And it's normally important to do two, both the directory or the file share and a file. Maybe dir tree, you don't need to do that. I know sometimes if you just did like fake here and it was trying to read a file, it may error out because there's no file name to read. I always just do two things whenever I specify SMB, because that way always works. And I always like things when either way the program is going to behave, it turns out fine, right? So I'm going to start up responder. So we do ton0, put in my password. We need a capital I, and ton0 is just my VPN interface. So we're listening on 10.10.14.8. So if I run this xp dir tree command, it's going to attempt to connect to me, and we can get the SQL service credential out of here. So let us now exit this, and we can go over to the Kraken and attempt to crack this, right? So this is a net NTLM v2 hash. So let's go into hashes, go into hashcat, hashes, escape.ntlm v2, paste in this, /hashcat, hashes, escape. We'll do word list of rockyou, right? And it should be able to auto-identify this hash. Looks like it did, and it has already cracked. So we get the credential Reggie1234 Ronnie. So let's try logging in at to the server with this credential. Let's exit this. Let's go back to CME. We can do SMB. Put the password, and then the username was SQL_service. And we get a status logon failure. We do have --local auth still. Let's fix that. I don't think that really matters because this is a domain controller, but apparently it does. Oh wait, anything authenticates now, right? Can we do WinRM? Trying this out. It does take a little bit longer than SMB. And we do see it says pwned. So we can use WinRM. Before I do that, though, I want to try going back in MSSQL real quick. So we can do SQL SVC and then the password. And failed to log in with this user. We can try SQL.htb / this. Failed to log in. I just want to go back to MSSQL and test this out. Just to make sure, I always like when I get a failure to try two different tools just to make sure it's not just a weird argument, right? And if CrackMapExec lets me in, then let's see, -x, who am I? Can we execute commands as this user? It looks like maybe not. Let's see. Ping 10.10.14.8. So let's try pinging us. So let's do a sudo tcp dump -I ton0 icmp lowercase I. Run this command, and see if we get a ping. It does not look like we do. So I'm not exactly sure what SQL service buys us in terms of Microsoft SQL, but we could WinRM into it, right? So let's do that. So Evil, is it just WinRM? Gem install Evil-WinRM. I probably need to do that with sudo Evil-WinRM. There we go. The credentials are up here. So let's see, -I 1010 11 202 -U SQL service -P Reggie 1234 Ronnie. And that does not look promising. I do see an error right here where it says could not find logger. So can we do sudo gems install logger? Or sudo gem install logger? And installed it. And let's see. Gem install string IO. This one now wants WinRM. There must be a better way to install this application. I did something wrong. Let's see. Builder. eRuby. Okay. This is getting ridiculous. Evil-WinRM GitHub. How do they tell me to install it? Do they just say gem install and have me do all these packages? Let's see. Install. Ruby 2.3. I think we're close. There's probably WinRM FS and a few others. It just says gem install whatever. GSS API. GYOKU. And I think if it doesn't work over the next one, I am just going to pause the video, get Evil-WinRM working. Because it should not be this hard. So I'm going to pause the video, get Evil-WinRM working. This is a good plug, though. If you're doing this box later, if you just go to github.com/ipsec/parrot-build, there are instructions of building Parrot out with a playbook. I'll make sure the playbook does have Evil-WinRM working. So definitely use this to build out the VM if you have trouble. So yeah, gonna pause the video and get Evil-WinRM working. So I have got WinRM working. Here's all the packages I ended up installing with Gem. I'm sure I did something silly to install it, but hey, it now works, right? And if you want to look at the Ansible playbook real quick, we can look at it in roles. It's under install tools, then gem tools.yaml, and we can see a list of all the packages we're just going to install with gems. So with that being said, we can now do Evil-WinRM and get into the box. So the very first thing I think of is, hey, this has a certificate authority, right? So let's go into program data and drop certify on this box. So we can do opt, sharp collection, net framework 4.7 any, and there's a Certify.exe right here. So Python 3-m HTTP. Actually, we can use WinRM to copy it. So let's cp Certify.exe to our box, or our folder, HTTP escape, and then we just upload Certify.exe. And it looks like it uploads just fine. So now we can do Certify.exe and look at it. It has a find/vulnerable flag. So let's do this. /certify.exe. and it's listing information about everything. And we get no vulnerable certificate templates found. Now, there are really three things we could do. We could either keep going down the SQL rabbit hole because I think we have the password for the account that is running Microsoft SQL because we're able to steal that within Packet. Now, that enables us to do the Silver Ticket attack, which I'll cover in the Beyond Root. The other thing we could do is look at what data we have access to on the server. And the third would be running WinPs, right? So I'm going to go down the second path and just look at things we may have access to on the server. So we'll do cd dash, do a dir. There is a SQL Server directory. And since we're the SQL Service user, that makes sense to go down. If there are logs, so let's go check out the logs. If we do dir, there's an error log. .back, which means backup, and that is from February 7th of 2023. So let's take a look at the error log backup file. And if we look, let's see, attempting to load library xp star DLL in memory. I don't know exactly what that is. Just above it, though, we see login failed for user nuclear mosquito 3. And then above that, we see login failed for user SQL Ryan.Cooper. Now, this is a bit odd. We have Ryan trying to log in. It looks like he typed the wrong password, and then he tried to log in again and assumed his username would be pre-filled. So he typed the password to try to get it in, and he attempted to log in with the password. Of course, it didn't work. So now we probably have his credentials based upon this error log. So let's go back to CrackMapExec and test this out. So I'm just going to work in my main directory. So CME, SMB, 10.10.11.202, -U, Ryan, is it period Cooper? It is. And -P nuclear mosquito 3. And as I'm doing this, I am remembering no matter what, it's going to authenticate me. So unless this was a local admin and it said pwned, I can't really trust this, right? Because, well, if this is a valid user, does it say authentication failed? It does. So we know this is a valid thing. And I'm just mentioning this because we take off the R in the username and give it a invalid username, it still passes us, right? So let us now do WinRM to see if this user can WinRM. If it can't, then I'll probably do like a run as CS executable to switch the user that way, because we can perform different types of logins with this Evil-WinRM session with that tool, run as CS. If we just do this on GitHub, it's just the run as tool, but built in C#. So you can put passwords through standard in, right? So we don't have to do that though, because Ryan.Cooper also can log into the box. So let's exit that and log in with Ryan.Cooper. And the password, nuclear mosquito 3. So logging in here, we can now go back to program data, and I'm going to run Certify again. So we'll do, we'll copy it from how we did it before. So Certify.exe, find vulnerable. So the same exact command, ran again, and this time it will probably tell us there is a vulnerable certificate. And this is just because the SQL service user didn't have permission to do the enrollment that this ticket requires, right? So if we look at it, we can see vulnerable certificate templates, and the user authentication template is vulnerable. And based upon the permissions, I'm guessing it's because the enrollment rights are set to domain users. If I do a net user on myself, let's see, Ryan.Cooper, we can see I'm a member of domain users. And let's see, SQL SVC, it's actually the same group. I don't know why the SQL service user couldn't do this attack. But regardless, let's just go back to the Certify GitHub page, and it kind of gives us instructions. We can see exactly what scenario this is. Let's see, once it loads, go down. We have 3 potential scenarios. And this one, the domain users can enroll Vaughn template. So we're able to do the third template, and that's the one they are showing in this. So they do certify request, specify the CA, specify the template, and then give the alt name of the local admin of the server. So if I do net user, I can assume the local admin is going to be administrator, right? So let's do Certify.exe request/CA DC SQL HTB. And if we go up, we can get the CA name here, SQL DC CA. It's a backslash like that. And then template, it's the user authentication template, I believe. I should just copy and paste this all, right? Where is template? Right here. That's what I'm grabbing. And then we specify the alt name of administrator. So what we're doing is essentially requesting a ticket for a user, but saying our user is administrator, right? I guess the vulnerability here is around being able to assign this alternate name for our certificate. So we enroll ourselves, give us the administrator alternate name, and then we're able to use this ticket to authenticate as administrator. So we have the ticket here, and it gives us the open SSL command to convert it. So let's grab the ticket, and then I'm going to go into a new pane, and I call it cert.pem, paste it in, go over here, and we can copy this to make it a PFX file. Export password, I just hit enter. And we should have a cert.pfx. It says data, so I'm going to trust that is the certificate. So let's go back to Evil-WinRM, and we should be able to use the certificate. Let's see, we have -C and -K, which is public key, private key. We just have the PFX. Maybe we didn't need PFX. If we do cert.pem, we do have RSA private and a regular certificate. So this is what we want. So let's open up cert.pem. I'm going to delete the certificate and then write key.pem, undo, delete the key, write key.cert, exit out, and we have key.cert and key.pem. So now we can do Evil-WinRM. And when we do certificate logins, we definitely need SSL -C key.cert -K key.pem. I think that's all we need. Well, we also need the IP SQL.HTB. And it's establishing a remote connection. I don't know why it's taking so long. Yes, maybe we want DC. Come on, exit. There we go. NC-ZV 5986 1010 11 202. 5986 like this. Okay, so 5986 is not open, so we can't communicate WinRM to that port. So I think we may have to use Rubeus. Let's see. netstat-an. Are we even listening on 5987? 59. Man, there are so many ports open. Find string 598. What port was it? 5986, yeah. See if this works. 5985. Let's just get a control. So we can see it's just not listening on 5986. So we can't do WinRM over SSL at all. So we can use Rubeus now in order to do this all locally. So I'm going to go back into program data. We're going to go into Sharp collection, net framework 47 any, cp Rubeus to this folder, and we can upload Rubeus.exe. And then we're going to do an ask TGT with this certificate. I just realized we have to upload the certificate. So let's upload, we'd call it cert.pfx, I believe. It looks like we did. So now we can execute /Rubeus.exe ask TGT /user is going to be administrator if we can spell. Certificate is going to be program data cert.pfx. So it's going to ask using domain controller. It's going over the IPv6, and it looks like it worked. We got the base 64 Kirby. So we have the ticket. If we do dir users administrator, we can't access it. And what happened here, I believe, is it failed to inject the certificate into our session. So we could also do a /get credentials /show no wrap. And what that's going to do is give us the NTLM hash of this user. And with the NTLM hash, then we can log in. We probably could have taken the ticket that was given to us and then used it with like PFX as well and logged in that way, right? So once we have a ticket as an administrator, there's so many different ways we could proceed. So let's do CME SMB 10.10.11.202-U administrator -H for the hash. I wonder if I have to give it in a different format. Nope. We have pwned, right? So now we can do psexec.py administrator at 10.10.11.202. I think we do -hashes. And this is definitely LM hash : NTLM. And I normally just paste NTLM : NTLM because it doesn't use the LM hash at all. I think it's just a regex in psexec. So now we are the NT Authority system user. So that is doing the box the intended way through the certificate abuse. Before we get into the silver ticket that I mentioned, we could also do this entire attack chain pretty much from Linux using the Certify command, right? So let's show that. Let's do Certipy and then find our user that we're going to authenticate as Ryan.Cooper, the password of nuclear mosquito 3. The target is going to be SQL.htb, and we want text, no out, and vulnerable. So this is just going to do pretty much the same thing we did with Certify and show us the vulnerable tickets, right? Or not tickets, but certificates. And here we have enrollment rights as domain user. And if we, it tells us domain users can enroll for, let's see, it's got to have the client authentication, right? Administrators, let's see, certificate templates. There we go, template name, user authentication. So we can then do a Certipy request. Actually, I'm just going to delete things I don't need. Let's see, we have the target. We need the principal name that we want to create. So that'd be administrator at SQL.htb. The CA is SQL. I'm going to copy this. Let's see. SQL. And then the template is user authentication. So if we did everything correctly, it should give us a PFX file just as Certify did. And then, let's see, NetBIOS debug. If I take debug out, it just magically worked. It failed the one time. I'm actually surprised it worked. You should have to do sudo ntp date 10.10.11.202 because we saw my clock skew was off. But maybe something got fixed. We see the offset was pretty big. I should have ran the date command before and after, but I'm sure looking at the video, maybe my hours jumped. Let's see. Oh, well, it works now. I honestly don't know where that one error came from. I know I need to do, let's see, pull ntp org. So I'm changing my time back off. Maybe the error is going to come when we attempt to authenticate. I am so confused why it errored one time. So there we go, time was set back. Oddly, my system time didn't change. So we are 3:46 p.m. EDT. Let's do Certify auth, PFX, and then the certificate it gave us, the administrator.pfx. Trying to get TGT. This should definitely fail if we're actually off on time. Let's see. There we go, a clock skew error. That is what I was expecting to get, but I expected to get it much later, or much earlier. So we do NTP date. We have that offset fixed. If I do date now, you can see it thinks I suddenly jumped up like 6 hours or 8 hours. So now if we attempt to do authentication, we can get the NTLM hash for the user. AAD3B is just a blank LM hash. So now that we've done Certify and Certipy, let's go down and do the Silver Ticket route. And the Silver Ticket is really just a way to forge TGS tickets, which is Ticket Granting Service in Kerberos. So I'm going to Google Kerberos auth explained. And we could go to the first blog post because it probably has a good diagram for us to go off of. So it saves me from having to make a diagram, which I'm always a fan of. So looking at this, this is going to be the Kerberos authentication process. Now, the whole key piece of this is 1, 2, 4, 5, 7. Every piece is happening between client and domain controller, and then the authentication just happens straight to the server. You never see the server actually talk to the domain controller in how Kerberos works. So what happens is the client goes to the domain controller and requests a TGT. The domain controller, if you have successful authentication, responds back with a TGT that's signed by the domain controller that says what you may have authentication to. So this is where the golden ticket comes in play, because you have a TGT ticket that you forward from the domain controller that says anything you want the TGT to say. The TGT is encrypted with the KRB TGT hash of the domain. And the servers, the clients that you want to talk to, don't know the KRB TGT hash, so they can't really use this TGT ticket because it's signed with a secret they don't know. You can only use the TGT ticket with a domain controller because the domain controller has the KRB TGT password that's used to sign it, so it knows all the secrets, right? So you give the domain controller that TGT, and that's the, I think, TG request, and then it sends back a TGS ticket that says, yes, you can talk to it. So with my TGT, I go to the domain controller, I say, hey, I want to talk to the server, the mssql server. The domain controller is going to look, says, yes, the TGT says you can. And then when it gives the TGS ticket back, it's going to encrypt that ticket with the password hash that mssql is using. If it's not a service, then it's probably going to use the machine account passwords hash, which changes every 30 days. That is the secret that protects all the kerberos. So the domain controller gives me back a ticket that says I'm allowed to access the MSSQL server. It's signed by the MSSQL's password. And when I hand it to the MSSQL server, it's just going to implicitly trust it because it thinks I have no way to know what its signing key for this ticket is. It says it must have came from the domain controller. Here it is, your access. So hopefully that makes sense. And for this attack to work, we're just going to really need two pieces of information. First, we're going to need the password. And that was like an, let's see, what was the password? That was the Reggie password. That's in this one, right? SQL service. So this is going to be the NTLM hash we need to get. And it's also important, all the tickets use NTLM hashes because, again, the domain controller doesn't actually know the SQL service password as this. It knows it as the NTLM, right? So to do this, we can just go into Python and generate a NTLM hash. And like all things Windows, it's just a UTF-16 little endian encoded string. And NTLM is actually just MD4. So we just have to encode it in UTF-16 little endian. If you've ever done like PowerShell base 64 encoding, you know Microsoft loves them a UTF-16 little endian, right? So let's do import hashlib, and then hashlib.new MD4, and then we'll put the password here. And this can be encoded in UTF-16 little endian. And we give it the digest. And this just gives us the raw form of it. NTLM is actually hex. So we do the hexadecimal form of it. And this is the hex of that account. So the piece we need is going to be this. The other thing we need is going to be the domain SID. And there's a bunch of ways we can get it. The easiest way is just going to be going into PowerShell and doing, I think, a get AD domain or get AD. Did this do it? SID, domain SID. There it is. We could probably do select domain SID if we really wanted to, right? But this is also in the ticket itself. So now we can do Ticketer.py-nt hash. And I'm going to save this as notes, I guess. And then we can cat notes. This will just make it easier for me to copy to my clipboard. So we do nt hash. Then we need domain SID. I think it's a dash. And we can give it this. And then what we need is the domain name, which is going to be SQL.htb. We have to give it a SPN. And this should be a valid SPN, but it doesn't have to be. I only say it should be a valid SPN because if you give it an invalid SPN, then of course a lot of like IOCs will be there because how did someone authenticate with a user that didn't exist, right? Even in like golden ticket attacks, when you have a TGT ticket, you can create you can fake sign a ticket from the domain controller with an AD user that does not exist, and it will still allow you to authenticate as them. And of course, in the logs, it'll give you that username, and then everyone's just gonna be like, wait, we did a get user on this account, and it doesn't even exist. How did it log in, right? So I'm gonna put totes legit as my SPN there. I'm gonna say DC SQL.htb, and then administrator. Ticketer.py. Did I spell that right? There we go. And now we have an administrator.cc cache. So we can do kerb5cc name is equal to administrator.cc cache, and then mssql client.py administrator at 10, 10, 11 to, oh, we probably have to give it DC mssql.htb because it is Kerberos, and Kerberos does like domain names, right? So if I do this, -k goes after mssqlclient. We probably should have done -no pass, but we can just enter nothing for a password and we get logged in as SQL administrator. And what this allows us to do now is we can enable XP CMD shell, and now it has enabled itself. So I can do XP CMD shell, who am I? We're SQL service. So I think it was, which one? Read file this. Select X from open row set bulk. I think we can just copy this. We don't actually have to do the whole like union injection because we're just writing SQL. So if I paste this, let's see, it's probably going to be C:, users, administrator, desktop, root.txt is the file we want. And we can get the hash this way. So what I'm guessing happened is under the hood, XPCMD shell is running create process, and it doesn't have the impersonation flag, or because our account doesn't have impersonation privileges, it fails to switch to our user with XPCMD shell. But if we don't use create process and just make underlying file system calls, it allows us to act as whatever user we want. So now we have this file hash as administrator. Let's see if we can just write a file, because if we can write a file, chances are we can escalate that way, right? So I'm just going to Google payload all the things, EOP, which is elevation of privilege, file write. And on this Windows privilege escalation page, it's going to give some examples of file writes. I'm not actually going to do it. I'm just going to assume it works. It may not, but there's always a new way that comes out to escalate privileges once you can write a file, right? So if we look at EOP privilege file write, we can see DiagHub is patched, USO DLL loader is patched, but it doesn't have patched things for word trigger, word manager. Maybe this just hasn't been updated, or maybe they still work. So let's prove we can write files. So I'm going to search power up SQL, bulk insert write file, because this is the one I want to use. That's read file. Here is bulk insert write file. And how the shell works that we have for MSSQL, we can't use multi-line things. We have to put everything on one line. We could probably switch to like SQL.sh, which has better like session management, or the lazy route is just to do it one line at a time. So these two are single commands. We have to create the table. And you may think we already created the table, but the last one drops it, so we had deleted it. And then we just paste these one line at a time, because this is all one command. And I'm going to change where it writes to, because I don't have a admin session up to look at the Windows temp directory. So I'm just going to put it at the root of the drive at C. And then we just put this. And we have some type of error message, right? But if I go back to my shell and do a dir/, we did not write the file. Let's see. Bulk insert error table, C:\\test.txt. Let's see. dir/. It is not writing the file. Let's see. Let's redo Ticketer real quick. I wonder if we have some type of like a ticket went invalid, because this should have worked. Oh, I copied everything and I put a comment. That's probably what happened. The comment screwed me up. And the final one, C:\/ that just happened. Invalid object name, error table. Let's recreate this. Okay, same type of errors. dir/. There we go. We have the file. So if we do get ACL on C:\/ that just happened, we can see the owner is built-in administrators. It's not our SQL service account, right? If we type C:\/ that just happened, we do have the file it had copied. So this is proving that we do have a elevated file right with this server ticket. So from here, we could probably find a way to escalate privileges. But that's going to conclude the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care, and I'll see you all next time.